Episode 2, Yuya and Tjuyu. Welcome back, and let us continue our discussion in the 22nd episode about Yuya and Tjuyu, or Thuya. Let us remind you that Yuya was the one who came from Akhmim to Luxor, and he might have been the foreigner who arrived in Egypt. As for Tjuyu or Thuya, she was the daughter of a priest of the god Min and the daughter of a palace attendant. Returning to the god Min, whose inscriptions were destroyed, Mahmud Muhammad Ibrahim, the Director General of Upper Egypt Antiquities, attributes the phenomenon of tampering with antiquities, as happened with Min, to two reasons. The first is natural factors, such as erosion caused by wind and atmospheric changes, as well as Nile floods, since most of these temples were submerged. The second reason is deliberate vandalism by individuals, starting with the Persians, passing through the Roman occupation, the persecuted Christians who sought refuge in the temples from oppression, and the Muslims who came with the Islamic conquest. Many of them settled in the temples and used some of them for living and other purposes, as Egyptian temples did not hold special significance in their culture. Ibrahim added that these antiquities did not receive care until the establishment of the Antiquities Authority Law. The Egyptian Antiquities Protection Law defined an antiquity when it stipulated its concept in the first article of Law No. 117 of 1983, stating that an antiquity is every immovable or movable property produced by various civilizations or created by arts, sciences, or religions from prehistoric times and through successive historical periods up to 100 years ago, provided it has archaeological value or significance as a manifestation of the various civilizations that arose on the land of Egypt or had a historical connection to it, as well as the remains of human lineages and contemporary creatures. Finally, Ibrahim points out that some of what the temples were exposed to might have occurred in ancient Egypt due to conflicts over power and various political events, especially in light of the battles fought to obtain the throne, with each party destroying what embodied the life and glory of the other. Distortion of the pronunciation of Min. In the 19th century, there was a mistranslation of the pronunciation of the god Min's name in ancient Egyptian to Em or Kem. Kem was the most important god in Akhmim since ancient times, so the independent identity of a god named Kem was reinforced, and it was said that Akhmim was merely a mispronunciation of the god Kem or attributed to him. However, Akhmim is the distorted pronunciation of the word mmnw, meaning the shrine or sanctuary of the god Min, which appears in the Demotic script as Shemen. But the depiction of the god Min with an erect phallus must have a story behind it. So, what is it? Let us learn the scandalous tale of Min as told by the Egyptians. The well-known image in Luxor depicts him as an erect man wearing a kilt, raising one arm to hold a whip while the other arm is hidden under his garment. He wears a crown with two plumes on his head, which is his religious symbol. As for his story, Robert Armour, a researcher at the University of Virginia, USA, narrates it in his book, Gods and Myths of Ancient Egypt. In ancient times, a decision was made for all able-bodied men to go to war, leaving only one man behind for guarding. It was said that the war lasted for many years, making the man a target for the village women. He had sex with all of them for years, and they all became pregnant and gave birth multiple times. The number of his children varied, with some saying he had 550 sons and others claiming they exceeded 1,000. When the men returned from the war, they found another army waiting for them. They became angry with Min, cut off his arm and leg, but his sons stood united with their father. As wars continued, the sons refused to enter the new war unless their father's life story was immortalized in the temples and he was deified as a fertility god. Indeed, the story of the god Min was immortalized, and he was given the title, Ammonius Min, depicted as a statue with an erect phallus, with women beneath him submitting and holding cups to receive fertility. This mythical story, unknown to many Egyptians throughout history, became a subject of jest and storytelling in all the villages of Luxor, and a mythical image that filled the imagination of adolescents. If someone saw the inscription, they would make a light-hearted comment, such as saying, God has 3 legs, or God took his foot and lengthened his phallus, despite the disappearance of his phallus from the wall paintings and its covering in some statues. In other sculptures, the phallus was completely broken and removed to prevent it from being prominent. Ashurabadi, a guard at the Luxor temple, mentions that the formation of pharaonic temples in this convoluted manner was used as a shelter by some, who would inhabit them seeking warmth on cold nights. This greatly affected the inscriptions, and it is noted that each family lived with their daughters and sons, so some saw these scenes as indecent because they did not understand the value of what they were living in. This led some to try to destroy the inscriptions showing breasts and genitals, especially those of the god Min. The evolution of the myth of Min, creator of everything, maker of gods and men. The book, An Introduction to the Egyptian Language and Hieroglyphic Symbols, by James Allen mentions that the god Min, pronounced in ancient Egyptian as Minu, is an Egyptian god whose worship originated in the pre-dynastic periods, which the Encyclopaedia Britannica dates to the 4th millennium BC. This. François Damas, an Egyptologist, adds another dimension to the image of the pharaonic fertility god, mentioning in his book, Gods of Egypt, that his worship was strongest in Akhmim and Coptos, where grand celebrations were held in his honor with public processions and many offerings. Excavations led by Flinders Petrie, the British Egyptologist, uncovered 2 large statues of him in Coptos, which are now in British museums. Some believe they belong to the pre-dynastic period. The importance of Min increased during the Middle Kingdom when he became more associated with Horus in the form of the god Min Horus. By the New Kingdom, he had completely merged with the state god and ruler of the gods, Ammonius, in the form of the god Min Ammonius Kamutef. The shrine of Min was crowned with a pair of bull horns. Adolf Ehrman mentions in his book, The Religion of Ancient Egypt, that since Min was the main god of fertility and possibly sexual rituals, the Greeks unified him with the god Pan. Returning to Lady Tjuyu or Thuya, in English, Tjuyu, lived in the 15th century BC in Akhmim, around the 1370s BC. She was a divine singer and director of religious ceremonies for the gods Min and Ammonius at the Karnak temple in Luxor, Egypt. She was the wife of a high-ranking official during the reign of King Amenhotep III, the father of Akhenaten, who was Yuya. This king, Amenhotep III, married their daughter, whose name was Tai. Amenhotep III ruled Egypt between 1388 and 1351 BC, according to the German historian Helck, or between 1390 and 1353 BC, according to Krauss. Thus, Yuya and Tjuyu are the grandparents of the father of the young pharaoh Tutankhamun, as Amenhotep III married Queen Tai in the 2nd year of his reign. This king was born from a secondary wife, Mutamwiya, to his father Thutmose IV, and needed a stronger link to the royal lineage. It seems he was crowned while still a child, perhaps between the ages of 6 and 12. This marriage resulted in at least 7, and possibly more, children. By 2010, DNA analysis, sponsored by the Secretary-General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, Zahi Hawass, was able to officially identify the Great Lady as Queen Tai, as her hair strands found in Tutankhamun's tomb matched the DNA of the Great Lady. The body of Queen Tai is now in the Museum of Egyptian Civilization in Fustat, Cairo. As for Yuya and Tjuyu, their tomb was discovered in 1905 in the Valley of the Kings in Thebes, in tomb number 46, by Theodore Davis. Gaston Maspero, who was the director of the Egyptian Museum, attended the unveiling. The mummies of Tjuyu and Yuya were found, with Yuya's mummy inside 3 nested coffins, in addition to Tjuyu's coffin and a number of statues, vessels, 3 wooden chairs, 2 beds, a chariot, and a box. The contents of the tomb were transferred to the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. This is the box, topped with a royal cartouche belonging to King Amenhotep III. Look at it.